Hey, what's going on everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing another AFL Evolution 2 wishlist video. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, I actually don't know how many of these I've done. I think this is actually part 4 to it, but today I'm going to be starting off with something simple that I definitely think should be in the game. I believe it's in every sports game. I know it's in 2K, I'm pretty sure it's in FIFA, and that is called Trade Finder. Now, for those of you who don't know what Trade Finder is, when you're trying to do a rebuild and build your team, you can go to Trade Finder and it will search a variety of trades being offered by a bunch of different teams all around the league. You can, go over them, choose to accept which ones you believe are the best ones for your team, and then you can obviously pick that trade and then you can complete the trade. The trading in AFL Evolution was pretty bad, and from remembrance, the picks didn't have any value in it for no reason at all. It was pretty hard to make a deal with a team realistically. Nothing was ever really working or anything like that. In my opinion, with AFL Evolution 2 coming out, I think Trade Finder would be absolutely awesome and would solve quite a bit of problems, and I think, it would be really cool, but do I see it happening? Not really. I don't know if I really see them adding it into AFL Evolution 2. I think there's a ton of other things they need to work on and potentially add into the game before that. But in saying that, they've pretty much been working on this game for like a year or two, I think, hopefully at least. So hopefully maybe something like a Trade Finder will have been introduced into the game. A couple of other things I would like are historic teams. Now, I've talked about it before. Historic teams would be really awesome if they could add that into the game. Some historic teams that come off the top of my head could be the 2000 or 2004 Brisbane Lions. That is just one that obviously straight away pops to my head. The 2007 to 2011 Geelong Cats. The 2012 to 2015 Hawks. The 2017 to 2019 Tigers. Those are so many teams I think they could potentially add into their game. A lot of historic teams that have obviously changed the AFL in the last 10 to 20 years that a lot of people are aware of and a lot of people know. It'd be really cool if, you're versing your friends, and instead of just picking from the basic teams, you could pick from a really good, and it would pretty much settle the debate of what teams are better, and you could really argue with your friends about it and all of this stuff, and then you could potentially verse off against your friends with those historic teams. That would be absolutely awesome in my opinion. Another thing I think they should add are player traits. It's something they're really introducing into NBA 2K and something that gets more common knowledge in more sports games every single year. For those of you who don't know, what it is pretty much there's a lot of, AFL players out there that potentially might not have the best traits about them. For example, Toby Green. He's not exactly the nicest player going around, gets suspended quite a bit, all of that stuff. Maybe if, you were playing your game, instead of just seeing some random player going to the tribunal, it wouldn't really make too much sense. Maybe there could be a percentage of a chance that certain players go, and a percentage of a chance that, other players go to the tribunal because of their reputation, because of what it's called, player traits. Certain players that could potentially leave their teams or are unloyal to their teams because of their traits. One that comes to my head is Jared Pollak, who was in a controversial thing where he left Brisbane to go to Port Adelaide because that's where he was from. Obviously, wanted to be closer to home. Couple years later, he leaves Port Adelaide for North Melbourne, reportedly due to the money. And then, you'd think he's going to be at Port Adelaide for the rest of his career, but that's where that could come in AFL Evolution 2. It could be a player trait that he could potentially move clubs in a couple years or request a trade because of something like that. Now, I don't know how they would really work it out. I think there would be some cool ways to add into the game. I think it would be really cool if it was in the game, but not necessarily a setting that you had to have on. Some of it could be pretty controversial. Obviously, maybe a player, as I said, like Jared Pollak, just randomly requesting a trade from your club for no reason. That could be a side effect of, having player traits on in the settings or something like that. And you could potentially turn it off if you didn't like it, so all that stuff wouldn't happen. It is an idea. Would I like into the game? Maybe not. I think there's way more other stuff they could potentially work on, but I guess I could put it on my wish list because the more stuff they have in the game, the better it is, obviously. And another thing they should have in AFL Evolution 2 is improved ratings. Definitely need to have improved ratings like what there are, in NBA 2K20. All the AFL teams are all around the same marks. They're all like, overall of 75s to 81. I believe the highest overall is 81. The highest overall should be like 95 or something like that. I don't know why it's 81. That's obviously not, if you're looking at out of 100, there are so many numbers, are higher than 81 that teams should potentially be. And yeah, obviously, going into the game, I expect, the Richmond Tigers should be about maybe, 95 or something like that. They've just won the premiership, 2 premierships in 3 years. If I see them on like a 78 overall, while maybe another team is like a 81 overall, it's not going to make much sense. And that's something that the last game did that was a bit strange, where some teams were actually better overalls than other teams, but in real, in actual real life, those teams that were lower overall were better than the actual teams that were higher overall. That's just something else. And then obviously improved ratings on players, like, who won the Brownlow? Nat Fyfe, obviously. Maybe he should be like, a 95 overall player. Cripps, 95 overall player, pretty much. Dusty, 94 overall player, whatever. Those are just examples rather than random players being certain overalls and all this and that. They definitely need to get their ratings right. They didn't make sense in the last game, and yeah, it obviously doesn't make sense why are teams, 80s and 70s, how are there no teams in the 90s and all of this stuff? It doesn't really make that much sense to me. I don't really know. Another thing I would also like for them to add into the game is a better sim. I would like the sim to, make a little bit of sense rather than playing one season and seeing the bottom 4 worst teams of the year before somehow being the top 4 best teams the year later. Like, I remember in AFL Evolution, Gold Coast, Melbourne, and Carlton were always like the best teams. Oh, and Brisbane. And they were never any good in, actual real life those years or anything like that. They obviously, one team did improve like 2 years later or whatever in Brisbane in 2019, but it still took 2 years, while the game would just automatically have them as first place and winning a premiership. I don't know, it's a little bit confusing. I hope the sim does get a little bit better and it actually makes sense on why the sim is, potentially having these teams winning games and why those other teams aren't winning games. That's just what I would potentially like. And maybe some sliders even here and there would be pretty cool. Maybe a way to change up the sim and all this stuff. Another setting that I would potentially like, I talked about Trade Finder earlier and, all these settings. One setting that I would really like to have is, potentially Trade Override. Trade Override would be really cool. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the first game from remembrance. Trade Override would obviously be really cool, because if you're trying to do a rebuild with a player that has requested a trade and you can't actually get that trade done due to the game not letting you, that would be extremely unfortunate and would probably most likely ruin pretty much every idea that you had there. So it would be extremely awesome if there was a way to have Trade Override on. So if you thought this trade that you came up by yourself or whatever, or if you saw this trade online, you would potentially be able to put it into the game. And then if the game doesn't accept it, you could Trade Override it. That would be extremely cool in my opinion, and yeah, something they should definitely add. Another thing they should also add is custom rosters and custom player makers. Obviously, I talked about it earlier, previously. What would be really cool is if you had custom draft orders and all this stuff that people would make online. But for there to be custom draft orders, you need people to, make the players and all this stuff to put in the draft order. To make the player, obviously, they're going to be needing a system where there's going to be a massive in-depth where you can make your own player, potentially do face scans and all of this stuff. Obviously, face scans would, if you're trying to do it from an app, it would most likely 100% not work. I mean, if NBA 2K can't get it right, then I doubt AFL Evolution 2 would obviously be able to get it right. But, potentially just choosing, your own character, like what you can do in AFL Evolution, the career mode, how you can choose your own character. It would be really cool if you could create characters for these custom rosters using these player makers and all this stuff. I know there is a way to do it, but there isn't a way to do it for custom rosters. And if you're going to have custom rosters, you need an in-depth player maker. And the player maker that's in the game right now is pretty bad. The face scan and all this stuff definitely needs to improve. The whole overall of the game really needs to improve, and I'm hoping that's something they do in AFL Evolution 2. Just make it something nice to look at. Like the AFL Evolution, when you're going into all this stuff, it just doesn't really look the nicest to look at, in my opinion, when you're going on settings and all this stuff. doesn't look good at all, in my opinion. I think there's going to be needing a lot of changes to all that type of stuff, and will they be able to make those changes? I don't know. I'm hoping they do. They're a small company, obviously, but yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what AFL Evolution 2 looks like, and to see if any of this stuff on my wishlist part 4 actually does end up making it into the game. But anyway, I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest AFL content and AFL news. Don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels. Links are in the description down below. So make sure you go. Oh, and also don't forget to subscribe to my Instagram account at @centrehalfbench_. I post all the latest AFL news. So don't forget to follow that. Link for that will be in the description down below, or you can just search it at @centrehalfbench_. So thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and comment in the comment section down below. And I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.